Whether you're new to real estate or already scaling your portfolio, this is a method for you to learn some of the strategies that we've used to scale to over 10,000 apartments. So there's 156 units.
Yep.
Ross, being the pioneer in Tucson, found this site. You want to tell about it?
What's really interesting is over a period of about 15 years, I made 3 offers on this site, and each one of them got less and less. Finally, what happened was that the father passed away and the kids couldn't get along, so they decided to sell it. So we were able to buy it for about $900,000 less than our first offer. But that's what it took. I mean, we just dogged it because we think it's such a great location. This is a northwest Tucson location. I would call it infill, surrounded by residential that's in the $500,000-$600,000 range. Tucson National Resort, half a mile to the
world-class golf there.
Convenient, great arterial with Cholla in front of us and a good, providing us great access to employment centers throughout Tucson. It's 156 units, restricted here, and we'll show you in a minute, but a certain portion of it is 1 story, which was a zoning requirement as well.
So sometimes what happens when you're building next to single family homeowners, they don't want to see a second story. Sometimes on the perimeter, you have to do single stories, so it kind of phases in. So you'll see the 2 stories in the middle and the singles on the side of the perimeter. So that's exactly what has happened here.
So the math is we acquired the land for $1,750,000, about $12,000 a unit. Construction costs total $35 million, and the all-in costs are around $45 million. Oh, we have a single equity partner here in Carlyle Investments, and so the plan will be to lease it up, stabilize it, and then put it on the market.
So this one's a little different, where we went to an institutional partner group out of California. A lot of people probably know who Carlyle is. They're our partner. They, instead of going out to our traditional LPs, we went to a partnership like that and did this deal with them.
I think it was just a strategic decision. We were in the middle of another project and a couple of other land purchases that we were.
The construction business is not for the faint of heart. So imagine that. So if you have 6 or 7 deals and you got 3 or 4 million in cash tied up in all of them, you're looking at $20-30 million in cash. So we were looking at our cash position. We had a couple other sites, and so we decided to go out and take a look for an institution that could help us. What happens when you trying to do anything, the bank wants you to have liquidity. They want you to have money in your bank. Then they also want you to have skin in the deal. So they want you to be invested, but they also want you to have money in the bank. So it's a chicken egg thing a lot of times.
Good way for us to allocate our resources. Yeah. Well, it's brand new construction, obviously. Take a look inside a unit in a minute and show you some of the improvements. Again, in an area where there has been no new construction in a long time, but the demand for apartments is very, very strong.
So we're 81% completed. So the property's 50% leased in just under 5 months. We haven't been open that long. We're doing very well here, and we're almost done with construction. What we'll do is we'll stabilize this and probably list it for sale. So what do you think roughly the value will be when we list this, which will probably be in the first quarter?
It's in the $50+ million range.
So what happens when you go out and sell your soul to Wall Street and you go out and find a big institution or family office or private equity or whatever you want to call it? They're the tail that wags the dog. The dog is this, and they're saying, we want you to sell, because they want their money back. Whereas a traditional LP model would be a longer term hold, cash out refi, so on. But we knew that before we started with them. We knew that this would be.
That was the business plan going in.
Yep. So you can do both. So this would be build it, sell it, and then scoop the profit and move on.
And we do have an option to buy it if we want to.
Yeah, we built that into the agreement. But the biggest reason is that freed up our personal cash. And that's huge. Yeah, when you start to stack development deals and construction back to back, with all the land and all the soft costs of engineering and architectural, all that stuff, we're always writing $50,000 and $100,000 checks every week, right?
Yep.
For stuff. And it just adds up, especially when you have multiple projects.
Can you go into the main thought process you guys have when you're buying a property? So first, is it location? Is it where the migration trends are? And just like
it's demand driven. One, is this a part of town that people want to live in? Will they pay the amount of rent it takes to support the new construction? If that's the case, then everything else kind of comes from that. And what we look for is sites that are infill and have close to arterials, particularly in a town like Tucson where we have no cross-town freeways, or even if we do, like in Phoenix, there's freeways everywhere, but we always look for freeway access, which gives our residents the most flexibility how to get back and forth to work.
You start at the end and say, what are rents going to be? How many units can you put on this site? And what's the cost of the land? What's the cost to build? And if the math doesn't work, you move on. And then what happens sometimes is maybe the broker said you could get 180 units on this site. So we tie up the land at 180 units, but then by the time you actually get to all approved, like this one's 156. So now you have to retrade on the land because the math doesn't work if you can't get as many units as.
Or you have extra site improvements or any number of things that help make that decision.
But you always start at the very end. What are the current rents? What are the current expenses based on how many units you can get on the property today? And then you work backwards, and then everything goes wrong from there.
We have kind of a back of the napkin, and I mean this pretty close to literal. I mean, we'll drive to a site and I'll see a site, 10 acres. I think, judging from my experience and just looking at it, we should be able to get 22 units to the acre. Literally, pull out my phone, put in a little Excel thing, see what the rent, plug in what I think the rents would be in that part of town, and then figure out what our net income is, and then what my value is going to be, and then whether or not and back into a land value from that. And then it's all the due diligence around the site improvements. It's all the due diligence around the engineering. They'll give you the entitlements, just eliminating all of the obstacles, getting an architect to design basic site plan and elevations, and so you can get a unit count. All that takes about 90 days. So we'll tie the site up with a typically 60, 90-day due diligence period.
Then you get into it and you start like, these are all one story. So when you did that back of the napkin, we thought there were going to be two.
So that 180 went to 156.
Yeah, so that's what happens. You're constantly adjusting, and there's things called setbacks and washes and open space requirements and those kinds of things. It's a takeaway from how many units you can put on a property.
This is all work you do before you even consider buying the property, right?
Yeah.
So what other work goes into it? Because I'm sure no one can wrap their head around how much due diligence actually goes into something before you buy it.
Our due diligence costs are typically around $50,000.
Yeah, per deal.
So if we look at a deal and turn it down, it's a $50,000.
And that's happened a lot. We actually have spent a lot of $50,000 checks and not actually done anything. That's just to find out the answer is no. It's worth it because this is over 40 million. So 50 grand to prove out a $40 million investment, it seems like not very much.
What were the biggest things that went wrong in this property?
We are very pleased with the way that this turned out. And, we like to use the same thing over and over again because it's efficient, cheaper, and we know the product, and we know how to do the construction. This is a little different because there are 4 or 5 building types here, as opposed to one that we've had in other projects. It's beautiful. The construction went very well. We were able to bring it in on time and on budget, and we're seeing great customer response or resident response for the project. It got challenging. The land improvements we expected when we did the original design turned out to not be feasible. So we had to redesign the land in the middle. That caused us some delays and extra costs.
Have we ever had a deal that's gone the way we thought it was going to go?
No.
Ever. No, there's always something. You have to build in for those things that you find out later.
I mean, if I talk to an investor, and I give them a pro forma, the only guarantee I'm giving you is that this pro forma is wrong. This is our best guess, and it's either going to be better or it's going to be worse, but we're probably not hitting it perfectly. The key is that we build in contingencies that cover mistakes we think we're going to make. If we don't make them, we have the contingencies left over. If we do, we got the money to support it.
It's impossible to know everything. You do your best, and I would say most of the time we're close.
Very close.
We're always typically eating into contingency on something, though.
With one exception, we've never busted the budget.
That one that we busted was pandemic.
Is in the pandemic.
Yeah, and it was supply chain related. We got hammered. We were 15% over on one project. Other than that, we've been on budget.
Been on budget every time. We've done 4,000 units, so I think that's like 24 projects. This property has a huge wash running through it that is restricted from being able to be built in because considered to be what's called a 404 wash, which is part of the flood control. When we had originally designed it, you're only able to do so much in improvements. So it was required to be redesigned and then re-permitted and re-bid, and that cost a lot of extra money, and it cost us time. And
the office and the buildings were on one site. The rest of the site is over there. And in between is a wash right here.
yeah, take a look at that.
So in order to capitalize on the entire site, you basically have to build a culvert, bridge, what do you want to call it, drainage, to go to the other property so that you can build over there. So in order to get the density to go to this property over here and be able to build units on it, you have to do all of this work. This here added millions to the land cost.
You can see that it's pretty much natural because you're not allowed to change it from its natural condition. I don't know exactly the number for the total cost, but the extra cost was in excess of $1 million.
Yeah, that was what we were over. 1.1 million over. That really is added to land costs.
Well, our land cost was $1,750,000, which was about $11,000 a unit. And the extra cost to develop the wash was $1 million, which is about $7,000 a unit. So our land cost was $18,000.
Right.
Which is kind of market.
Which is about right. This will fill up like a river.
How much water can come through here? I've seen it to this high.
And don't forget, it comes from the mountain.
Yeah.
So it travels miles, and then it goes under that road and just keeps going all the way to the river. So you can see when this done, we were able to actually add another double the amount of units on this side of the property. So the site was 9 acres, and then the wash through the middle. So you had to do the wash to be able to build the whole project.
And if you don't do the improvements, the setbacks are so big, site's not developable.
And you can see that's where you start, right? That was already existing as the culvert's there. So all you're doing is extending it through the project.
Fun fact, we actually built that next door. And you can see that wash there. You can see how that continues. So this is the second project we built on this wash.
We're 81% done from a construction standpoint, which means that we're just an exterior paint, interior punch work, almost off the project, really, from a construction standpoint, which is huge. And what always lags is the lease up. So we're 50% leased right now. And we need to be at least 75 to 80% before we put a permanent loan on, which the whole goal is to get out of construction loan, permanent debt on, and or sell it. You can actually sell it without putting permanent debt on. We're not sure what we're gonna do yet.
The investor wants to sell it. It'll go on the market, and we have an option to purchase it at X value. And if we decide not to purchase it, then it will probably sell somewhere in this by May or June of next year.
It's important to know that it's collaborative at this point.
Right.
So when you bring on a big money partner like we did for this, it's not our decision. So unlike a lot of our stuff where we can kind of decide to wait the market out. If we owned this, we would probably hold it for 2 or 3 more years for sure. And we still might. You know, we have to take a look at that when we're stabilized and see where the values play out. We might internal buyout and buy that partner out, which is something we negotiated in the beginning. What happens when you take on money from Wall Street, which makes sense, is that they want it back within a few years. So a lot of times when you're buying stuff or building stuff, the easy thing is actually to go to Wall Street and do a deal, but sometimes you're just doing it for fees. That should not be why you're doing it. When you use LP money, which is what we prefer to do, then we can kind of time the market and we can do what's best for the real estate. So a lot of times the Wall Street private equity group or an institutional equity group, they're solving to the IRR, rate of return for the money that they put out. We're actually solving the entire real estate deal. And so that's a big difference. In the Wall Street situation, they're solving to the money. An LP deal, we're solving to the partnership.
In addition to that, the Wall Street deals are typically private equity funds, and their funds are driven by decisions that are made or based on the parameters of the fund. So in many cases, we've seen in the past where funds are selling when they shouldn't be selling. It says in the document they have to do it. So maybe not the right thing for the real estate. Again, we prefer to work with our own limited partners, provide them the benefit of the construction, our market expertise, and be able to make decisions based on what's right for the real estate and the investors as opposed to any other criteria.
So these are the last deals. These properties are still under construction in the middle of a punch, and the contractors are actually doing the final touches on these before they'll be turned over to management. So we're almost done. Let's go into this lower unit here, Ross. You want to? So these would not be rent ready yet. The number one thing that all real estate investors miss is looking for the experience of the operator that they're investing with. And Ross McAllister and I have over 75 years of experience, and that's not including our executive team that has hundreds more. We have over 300 professionals, so that's what it takes to pull this off. That's on the management, the development, the construction, the renovation, the maintenance, the leasing. All of it is important, and it all needs to work together vertically to be able to pull this off. So when you're considering where to invest, you need to look for experience and you need to look for a track record, because that's ultimately what's going to get you across the goal line. So if you're an investor and you want to see the thought process that goes into how we look at deals and of course our deal flow, just click the link here and you'll get into our portal and you'll have access to everything we're looking at.
So we're just about finished with this. As you can see, we've got the cabinets in, sinks, appliances have been installed. We're down to punch work, gonna install a dishwasher, doing cleanup over there right now. We're probably 2 weeks away from available to rent. I'll have to ask the office, but the average is about almost $1,600.
So there's a pretty fine coordination for what, let's say, construction would be doing. So the management, the people in the office, they know that they'll deliver this unit in 2 weeks. So they're actually already trying to lease it. There's a little bit of a lag, right, John?
We run a real-time finish schedule with them. When they rent one, we put a priority on that unit. immediately, and it'll be, say, the first unit that we walk in the building as we're completing it. So we make sure that it's done. And then we'll send them a daily report on as these units are wrapping up. And of course, here, Laura and Etsy and all of them take it real seriously. They walk these units with us to make sure that they're complete.
The public tells us what they want. So they show up and they go, I want this unit brand new in this location. And then it gets communicated back, and then we have the ability to kind of reprioritize because the whole goal is to rent them. Sometimes we have to adjust the schedule, but most of the time they're leasing 2 weeks, even a month out. And we're just working on a normal punch on something like this. So the goal would be to be 100% leased when all the units are delivered. That's always the goal.
Silverbell, when we turned over the clubhouse in that first building, we had people making reservations in buildings 10, buildings 11, the last buildings.
Yeah.
They wanted to be back by the wash. They didn't care to see it finished. They had already seen it finished building. They wanted to be where they wanted to be.
That happens a lot, yeah. So the public decides where they want to be, just like anything. And then you try to accommodate the best you can based on the construction.
And we always try to accommodate them when they've got a closing date, even if we got to squeeze it.
One more reason to have everything in-house.
Exactly.
Literally, because our property managers work for us, and construction works for us, development works for us, subcontractors work for us. Everybody's on one team, as opposed to having lots of different teams with different agendas. So that's one huge benefit as you start to build. The cool thing is you have all that 1 year of marketing and drive-by traffic as people see something being built. So that's the first thing. You build all this momentum. So when you first open, like you have all this, okay, we were waiting for you to open, just like anything that's new. So you have this initial surge in the beginning. Then you usually fill those up, would be my experience. And then now you're actually using traditional marketing just to get more traffic here. You have lease-up teams. Lease-up teams are very different than stabilized teams. Some people that run projects stabilize. And a property like this, you need more high sales, more geared toward leasing, closing, that kind of stuff. I'm not saying you don't have that at other projects, but a lease-up property is very different than stabilized because it's a race against the clock. We have a construction payment every month that's super high. And the minute we're full, we can replace that out with traditional permanent debt. It's a race against the clock. Get off the construction loan and put permanent on every time.
Every dollar we make during pre-leasing before it's finished is almost 100% profit.
A lot of people really like to live in brand new projects, and that's actually fun. As a renter, there's only one time where I can move into something brand new. Believe it or not, there's a fair amount of interest if it's priced right. People moving out of older properties into the newer stuff because the newer stuff has all the new bells and whistles.
Yeah, and you'll find those particular customers take a lot of pride in decorating their units.
That's right.
And proactive in the project. Brand new, they're the first people to live in it, and they take that real personal, and it's real important to them. And they take real good care of their places. So it's awesome.
And there's always a little conflict between the subcontractor, the management. Like a drywaller, they just want to get out of here. A painter, they just want to get out of here. Whereas the manager will come in and they'll put blue tape all over, and then they come in and they're upset. They have to come back. There's this turnover process John has really smoothed out. If a tenant moves in and they have all those things, they're going to be pissed. So the subcontractor is trying to get out. So there's a kind of a dance there at the end.
There is a dance at the end, but in having our own employee working on these things from day one, there's a whole nother level of pride in what they're delivering. And it shows in the work when it happens that way. The units are super clean and management doesn't have to do much. We spoiled poor Patsy out at when they're in-house and they're part of the MC team, they take things much more seriously and they take things to the nth degree to get it done. So.
Almost all problems are communication based, like almost with everything, right? Whenever you have 4 different things trying to do something together, there's communication problems. When it's all under one boss, seriously. No, really, right? When it's all under one house, very different. Everybody works together, everybody's rowing together. It's extremely different, much more efficient, much more profitable, and things happen actually much quicker.
Nobody wants to let anybody else down. And if you run into conflicts, in essence, having conflicts with yourself, we have one agenda, and that's to finish it and get somebody in here. So once that's done, everybody's working towards that goal and not worried about whether they're getting $5 in rent or whether they're getting an extra $5 in profit off of the construction. That's not what's important. What's important is the mission of being able to provide this, like I said, get it finished and get it leased.
We try to build the same kind of relationship with the subcontractors that work for us. We refer to them as trade partners instead of subcontractors. About 70% of our list, they're all repeats. We've worked with these guys for 20 plus years or longer. We're also worked with some of them even longer than that, closer to 30 years. And I've worked with these guys for over 20 years, most of them. They know us. They understand our philosophy. They understand that we want them to make money just like they want us to make money. And that's by making the project run as just as fast and as smooth as it possibly can.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Ross.
George.
George, nice meeting you. Nice seeing you, buddy. Cecil, how are you? You know, when you deal with a third-party contractor, you got to believe what they're telling you. If he says, that, you know, like your electrical sub's going to charge you $15, you don't know whether the electrical guy's getting 10 and he's getting 5. You can't identify those costs. Having our own construction company and being able to negotiate directly with the subcontractor could be thousands of dollars.
What happens a lot on projects is there's a lot of kickbacks. There can be.
Well, and there's hidden costs. We talked earlier about contingencies. Lenders require contingencies, we require contingencies, and the general contractor requires a contingency. But I don't know what else he's building into the costs, the various line items that he can or cannot get. So we can really boil down the real costs, know that we're getting absolutely the fairest price possible.
Ross is the king of getting a bid or 3 bids and then just saying, okay, cut it by 20%.
Well, 3, but yes. We save 3% on a job like this, it's $1.5 million. Well, you have to have people that know what the hell they're doing.
And you got to ask why they would work for you. Why would a guy like John work for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing? So here's what I recommend if somebody wants to vertically integrate. You have to find an incredible team. I mean, it's all about the team. But you also have to know what you're doing. You can't just go find a team. You can, but a guy like John is not going to just come work for anybody. We have a 20-plus year track record with successful projects. People at the top of their game are going to go work for companies like that.
So John knows just about everything there is to know about construction. He really excels at quality control and he really excels at scheduling, that the job's ready to go and that it's well managed. I don't have that skill. I know how to schedule and manage, but I know nothing, almost nothing technically about construction. That skill set's really important. Between the two of us, you got to be able to get is that in order to vertically integrate, you got to find the person who can do the jobs you can't do. That's it. I have to think about how I did that when I didn't have 25 years of experience. But you have a mission and you have a belief, you get people to believe in you, that you can pull it off. And we both have been very successful at doing that over the years.
Somehow convincing people when we have very little experience to get behind us. And, you know, luckily now we have the experience and we actually, believe it or not, as you grow with wisdom and experience, you actually attract better and better people. So it's harder when you start. Somebody like John is not going to come to work for somebody that has never built anything. He would, right?
I don't think so. He left here once to work for what he thought was a better deal and came back again because it wasn't that.
You know, that's common actually. We've had that happen a lot in our company. People leave and then they come back, and it's okay. They go and they see that they don't have the systems, the organization, the background, the lender contacts, the equity, and all the things that kind of the momentum of an organization. People don't see the momentum of an organization. That's huge because then you just jump on top of a momentum that's already going. Whereas a lot of times, if you're brand new, you have no momentum. So you're pushing. And so it's really hard in the beginning. Not that you can't do it.
I'm sitting here thinking about this, and I think if you're new at something, you have to have the humility to admit you don't know what you don't know.
Which is hard for a lot of people.
It's very hard for people. You have to say, okay, I have the confidence to be able to do this, but I don't have the skill. So I'm looking for you to provide me with this skill set. And that's the same on the management side as well. I tell the story all the time. When the first project I ever did, my wife and I decided, well, you know, we don't have anything else to do, so we'll be the manager. We lasted about a week. But this is not what we're going to be good at.
It's hard.
Right away, figured out we need to have somebody who can deal with those people, deal with residents and deal with the issues that come up, and not take the fact that they don't like your apartment personally, that you're on the hook for millions of dollars in guarantees. I don't know how to do this, but if you come here, I know we can work together and pull this off.
This is a property that is only 81% complete. If you want to see one that's 100% complete and cash flowing millions of dollars a year, watch this video here.